Dayton Brown has not appeared on Sister Wives this entire season. No background shot, no interview, no mention, nothing. For a family that has filmed nearly every moment of their lives on national television for over a decade, birthdays, breakdowns, moves, marriages, and everything in between, the complete and total silence around one specific person is not normal. It is not an accident. And it is not a coincidence. Then Peyton Brown went live on TikTok and said his brother Dayton had been kicked off the show for doing something bad. And then, in the same breath, he took it all back. He called his own words a lie. He said they never happened. He said nobody could ever hold him to what he said because he was taking it all back. But here is the thing about words. Once they are spoken out loud, you cannot actually take them back. People heard it. People wrote it down. And now everyone wants to know the same thing. What did Dayton do? Where is he? And why is his own brother scrambling this hard to unsay something he already said? The answer is not what most people think. It is not dramatic. It is not scandalous. But it is a story that goes back years, involving an RV, a road trip, a biological father, a $2 million house, and a family that has spent a very long time trying to control a young man who simply refused to be controlled. This is the full story of where Dayton Brown actually is, and why he is no longer on your screen. There's been a rumor circulating on the internet for about a week that was started by Peyton Brown himself, relating to his brother Dayton, who nobody in the family actually talks to, other than the immediate siblings like Aurora, Brianna, Ariella, and Sol. For a family that has built its entire brand on openness, transparency, and living their plural marriage out loud on national television, the silence surrounding Dayton Brown is loud. Fans have been asking about him in comment sections, in Reddit threads, and across every platform where Sister Wives content lives. Where is he? Why isn't he on camera? What happened? Those questions had been simmering for a long time, but it was Peyton Brown who turned up the heat and brought everything to a full boil. Peyton returned to TikTok lives, and his stated reason was straightforward: he needed money. He said he was going live for financial reasons, which on its own is not particularly noteworthy. People do TikTok lives for far less compelling reasons every single day. But Peyton is not just any TikTok user. He is Kody and Robyn Brown's son, a member of one of reality television's most discussed polygamous families, and anything he says publicly carries weight, whether he intends it to or not. Fans who tuned in began asking questions, and Peyton began answering them. That decision had consequences he clearly did not anticipate. During one of those lives, and this is a critical detail, no one saved the footage. The live has not been recovered, archived, or clipped in any form that remains publicly accessible. What is known comes from viewers who were present in real time and reported what they heard. According to those accounts, Peyton stated that Dayton had been kicked off the show for doing something bad. Those words, spoken live and unscripted, were out in the world before anyone could walk them back. Fans who caught it shared what they heard, and within a short period, the claim had spread across fan communities and discussion forums with significant momentum. But here is where the story takes its defining turn. When Peyton was asked about it a second time by fans who had clearly heard what he said and wanted confirmation, he did not stand by his statement. He denied that he said anything about Dayton at all. He called what he said about Dayton a lie and basically said he was rescinding anything that he had started about Dayton. Word for word, the response that came back was, "I am taking back all lies that I have spoken about Dayton. They no longer exist. Nobody can ever blame them on me again because I have taken all of them back." That is not the response of someone who misspoke casually. That is the response of someone who said something, realized what he had said, and made a deliberate and urgent effort to erase it. And that urgency told the audience everything the denial was trying to hide. Rather than calming the situation, the backtracking confirmed in many people's minds that something significant was being concealed. When someone publicly announces that they are rescinding a statement and insists that their own words no longer exist, it does not make those words disappear, it makes them more interesting. Reddit threads exploded within hours. Fan communities that follow Sister Wives closely began compiling timelines, cross-referencing Dayton's appearances across recent seasons, and comparing notes on when exactly he dropped off camera entirely. The contradiction between what Peyton initially said and what he then frantically tried to retract did not close the conversation. It opened it wider than it had ever been before. What makes Peyton's involvement particularly worth examining is his own track record when it comes to public statement. This is not the first time he has gone live, said something significant, and then backed away from it. He has been in his own complicated situation with Kody following a live he did with John Yates where he accused Mary of abuse, a live that reportedly prompted Kody to push for an ENDA and attempt to block Peyton from appearing on any further podcasts or public platforms. Peyton lives in a household where speaking freely carries documented consequences. So when he goes live on TikTok and says something about Dayton being kicked off the show and then scrambles to unsay it with that level of urgency, it is reasonable to ask what pressure was applied between the first statement and the second. The pattern is consistent. Peyton says something, then backtracks under pressure. That pattern does not make him a liar in the straightforward sense. It makes him someone caught between what he knows and what he is permitted to say. And the gap between those two things is exactly where the truth about Dayton Brown lives. The moment Peyton's comments about Dayton being kicked off the show began circulating, two theories immediately took hold across fan communities. The first was that Dayton had moved to Montana to live near the family's original compound. The second was that he had gone to live with his biological father. Both theories were logical on the surface. They fit the narrative of a young man breaking free from a controlling household and returning to his roots. But both theories are wrong. Dayton is not in Montana. He does not live with his biological father. And the actual picture of where he is living is, in many ways, more telling than either of those theories could have been. When you search Dayton's address through public records, the address that comes up is not in Montana. It is not associated with his biological father. The address listed for Dayton is the same address as Kody and Robyn's new $2 million home, the property they purchased and moved into, located right next to the cinder mine. That single data point answers the question of where Dayton is, but it opens an entirely separate set of questions about what his life actually looks like inside that arrangement, and what level of independence he genuinely has. The new property that Kody and Robyn purchased is not a modest home. It is a $2 million residence that has been described as outdated despite its price point, but more relevant to Dayton's situation is the layout of the property itself. The home includes a guest house. It also includes an entire garage specifically designed and sized to accommodate an RV. Whether Dayton is living in the guest house, whether he is living in the RV inside that garage, or whether he has some other arrangement on the property is not confirmed. But the address is confirmed. He is there in some capacity on that property under the same roof or very close to it as Kody and Robyn. This detail is not new information when you look at the full history. When Kody and Robyn were still living at the Hashknife house, people who toured the home during the real estate process were told directly by real estate agents that the RV parked on the driveway was where the oldest son had been living. Those same agents indicated that there was a possibility the RV could be sold along with the property to whoever purchased the home. Read that again. The RV that housed a member of the family was being offered as an optional add-on in a real estate transaction. That is the documented reality of what Dayton's living situation looked like at the Hashknife property. The fact that the new home came equipped with an RV garage is a detail worth noting in that context. Now, the question of whether Dayton is on camera this season is separate from the question of whether he was physically present during filming. These are two different things, and conflating them leads to the wrong conclusion. Dayton appeared in background shots in episodes last year. He was visible, even if not featured or interviewed. This season, he has not appeared on camera at all. Not in the background, not in passing, not in any capacity. His complete removal from the footage is what accelerated the speculation, but his absence from camera does not automatically mean he was absent from locations where filming took place. There is a well-documented precedent for this in reality television. When the Duggar family filmed events and certain family members had chosen not to appear on television, those individuals were simply edited out. Jill Duggar was present at Joy's wedding, but was not shown. At Mary Duggar's funeral, neither Jill, nor Deanna, nor Amy Duggar appeared in the footage. Not because they weren't there, but because they had made decisions about their participation that the production was obligated to respect. Once someone makes a decision with TLC that they don't want to be on TV, and they're not willing to sign a waiver that they will appear on the show, they can't be shown on camera. That is the standard contractual and ethical boundary that governs what footage can and cannot be used. Dayton appears to have reached exactly that point. He has not signed whatever agreement would be required for his image to appear on the show. His physical presence at a location does not override that decision. TLC cannot air footage of someone who has declined to participate, regardless of whether a camera happened to capture them in a room. The result is a complete and total absence from the screen, which to an audience that does not know the mechanics behind it looks like a disappearance. It is not a disappearance, it is a refusal. And that refusal, given everything else known about Dayton's relationship with the show, with Kody, and with Robyn, is the most coherent explanation for what viewers are seeing, or rather, what they are no longer seeing. Understanding where Dayton Brown stands today requires understanding the full timeline of how he got here. His current situation, living at the address of Kody and Robyn's property, absent from camera, estranged from siblings, and unwilling to participate in the show, did not happen overnight. It is the result of years of compounding decisions, broken boundaries, enforced control, and one pivotal act of independence that changed the trajectory of his relationship with his family permanently. To understand the present, you have to go back to the beginning of when things started to fracture. Dayton enrolled at Northern Arizona University, and by all reasonable expectations, that should have been the start of a new chapter for him. He was a young adult pursuing higher education, and the natural progression of that would have been moving to campus, building independence, and beginning to establish a life outside of his mother's household. That did not happen. Not because Dayton didn't want it to, but because Robyn was not willing to allow it. She did not want to let Dayton out of her sight. She was scared of him being out on his own. And the solution that Kody and Robyn arrived at was not to support Dayton's transition into independence. The solution was to move the entire family to Flagstaff so that Robyn could remain in proximity to him. Christine makes clear in her book that they moved to Flagstaff to follow Peyton. And from the way Gwendolyn and Peyton have described it, the driving force behind the relocation was Robyn's refusal to let Dayton go. The family uprooted from their established lives, not for a job opportunity, not for a community, not for any of the reasons families typically relocate, but so that a mother could maintain physical closeness to an adult child who was, by every measure, capable of functioning independently. Dayton was unable to get freed from his mom. That is the foundation on which everything else was built. Then came COVID, and with it, Kody's now well-documented and extensively discussed household protocol. Kody implemented strict rules governing the behavior of everyone in his family network during the pandemic. For Dayton, who was attending now and who had a social life he had worked to build, those rules represented an impossible standard. He was a college student. He was young. He was navigating a university environment. He did not want to comply with Kody's pandemic rules, and he made that choice openly. The consequence was immediate and severe. He was thrown out of the house and moved into an RV where he lived on their property for multiple years. Not temporarily, not as a brief transitional arrangement. For multiple years, Dayton Brown lived in an RV parked on his parents' property because he refused to surrender his autonomy to Kody's pandemic protocols. That detail was not kept private. When the Hash Knife House was being shown to prospective buyers, real estate agents told individuals touring the home that the RV on the driveway was where the oldest son had been living. It was disclosed as part of the property's history casually, as though it were an unremarkable footnote in the home story. For the family, it may have been normalized by that point. For the rest of the world, it was a window into exactly what Dayton's daily reality had looked like for an extended period of time. Against that backdrop, living in an RV on his parents' property, cut off from the main house, effectively punished for wanting a normal college experience, Dayton made a decision that would prove to be the single most significant turning point in his relationship with Kody and Robyn. After graduating from high school, he went on a road trip and reunited with his biological father. They spent approximately 3 weeks traveling together, visiting various parks, and rebuilding a relationship that had been severed for years. That trip was not a casual vacation. It was Dayton actively choosing to reclaim a connection that Robyn had spent years either minimizing or controlling access to. Robyn has been documented as someone who lies to her children about their biological father, and Dayton's decision to seek that relationship out independently was a direct challenge to the version of reality she had constructed for her kids. The response from Kody and Robyn was exactly what you would expect. The reunion was not received well by either of them. There are contacts in Montana, in Piney-Dale, near the family's original compound, and no one has seen Dayton since he went to visit his dad that summer after he graduated from high school. It has been many years since that visit. Dayton has not returned. He has not been seen in that community. Whether he still maintains regular contact with his biological father is not confirmed, but the fact of that initial reunion and the years of absence from Montana that followed tells its own story. What Dayton did by taking that road trip was declare, without words, that he was capable of making his own choices about who deserved a place in his life. He chose his biological father. He chose a relationship that Robyn had not sanctioned. He spent 3 weeks building something that belonged entirely to him. And when he came back, the consequences of that choice settled permanently into his relationship with Kody and Robyn, shaping the estrangement, the ARV years, the camera refusals, and the silence that fans are now desperately trying to decode. The question of why Dayton Brown will not appear on Sister Wives is one that fans have been asking for seasons. The answer, when you strip away the speculation and the Reddit theories and Peyton's contradictory live statements, is actually not complicated. It is built from several concrete, documented, and confirmed layers, each one reinforcing the next, and together they form a picture of a young man who has made a deliberate and firm decision to remove himself from a production that he never wanted to be part of in the first place. Start with what Mykelti said. Mykelti, on her Patreon, stated that Dayton has zero interest in reconciling with any of his siblings. He did not want to see anyone, he did not want to talk to anyone, he was done. This was not a secondhand rumor passed through multiple people. This came directly from Mykelti, who was actively attempting to serve as a bridge between Dayton and the rest of the siblings. She tried. She made genuine efforts to open a door between Dayton and the people he had grown up with. And when Mykelti had tried to mediate and encourage him to speak to others, he shut her down very sternly and said he did not want any reconciliation with his siblings. That is not ambiguity. That is a clear and deliberate boundary communicated without room for misinterpretation. Dayton is not quietly waiting to be welcomed back. He has actively refused re-entry. The way that Mykelti and Tony have described the dynamic within Kody and Robyn's household is that the kids have been very led by Robyn and that Robyn treats them like babies. That environment, one where adult children are managed, directed, and kept emotionally dependent, is the environment Dayton has been living inside. His rejection of reconciliation with his siblings is not a personality flaw. It is the logical result of years spent in a household structure designed to limit independent thought and autonomous relationships. Then there is the camera issue, which runs deeper than simple shyness or privacy preference. Dayton was never comfortable being on camera. He never liked filming. His discomfort is tied to 2 specific and serious factors. The first is his autism. Being on camera, being directed, being asked to perform emotional conversations for a production crew, and being placed in situations designed for television drama are all genuinely difficult experiences for someone on the autism spectrum. The second factor is his appearance following a serious ATV accident he suffered. That accident left visible physical effects that Dayton was deeply uncomfortable with, and he did not want those to become part of his public identity on a reality television show. But here's the part that makes his discomfort not just understandable, but entirely justified. He never got the choice. His mom forced them to talk about it on camera. They forced him to go through those surgeries on camera. The accident, the recovery, the surgeries, all of it was captured and broadcast while Dayton was in no position to advocate effectively for his own privacy. The show documented his most vulnerable physical moments without his willing consent, and that experience created a relationship with the camera that was defined by violation rather than participation. Expecting him to return to that camera with enthusiasm after everything it took from him reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of what filming that content actually cost him. Beyond the personal discomfort, there is also a practical dimension that rarely gets discussed. Dayton graduated from college, he earned 3 degrees, he was top of his class, and received awards upon graduation. He is an educated adult with documented academic achievement, and if he were going to participate in filming a television production at this stage of his life, it is entirely reasonable to expect that he would want to be compensated for that participation. The younger, more compliant version of Dayton, who appeared in background shots, had no leverage. The 25, almost 26-year-old college graduate with honors credentials is a different person with a different understanding of his own value. Compensation is not an unreasonable expectation, it is a professional one. As for Peyton being the person who can explain any of this, he cannot. Peyton and Dayton do not speak. Peyton himself admitted that Dayton does not keep in contact with anyone. He said he hopes Dayton is doing okay, which is not language that suggests any real knowledge of Dayton's current circumstances. You do not say you hope someone is okay if you have actual information about how they are doing. That phrasing is the language of distance, not familiarity. Peyton's credibility as a source is further undermined by his own documented pattern of behavior. After doing a live with John Yates where he accused Mary of abuse, Kody allegedly attempted to get Peyton to sign an ENDA and worked to block him from appearing on podcasts or any further public platforms. Peyton operates under real pressure from Kody every time he speaks publicly. So when he makes a statement about Dayton being kicked off the show and then urgently retracts it in the same breath, the most accurate interpretation is not that he lied. It is that he said something true, felt the consequences approaching, and retreated. His pattern is consistent: say something, then backtrack under pressure. He is not a reliable or credible source on Dayton's situation, and treating his retracted live statement as the definitive explanation for Dayton's absence is a mistake. Before arriving at the real reason Dayton Brown is absent from Sister Wives, there is one more layer that needs to be addressed directly, because it has been used, debated, and weaponized in online communities for years, and it deserves to be settled with facts rather than speculation. The question of whether Dayton is actually autistic has been a recurring point of contention among fans and critics of the show. A significant portion of the audience has long suspected that Robyn either fabricated the diagnosis, exaggerated its severity, or used it as a narrative tool to position herself as a devoted, self-sacrificing mother on television. That suspicion is understandable given Robyn's well-documented history of controlling behavior and her pattern of shaping the family story to serve her own image. But in this specific case, the suspicion does not align with the confirmed fact. According to a family member who knows Dayton personally, grew up with him, and was present during his childhood, he was diagnosed with autism by a professional. He received services. He went to public school and received services for autism through the school. That is not a diagnosis that originated with Robyn's self-reporting on a reality television show. It is a diagnosis made by a qualified professional supported by institutional services provided through the public school system. Public schools do not allocate special education services based on a parent's word alone. There is an evaluation process. There are assessments. There are documented findings. Dayton went through that process and received services as a result of it. He was not self-diagnosed by Robyn. He received a diagnosis from a professional, and he is autistic. That is a fact, and it is not in dispute among the people who were actually present in his life during those years. What is also a fact is that an autism diagnosis does not determine a person's capacity for independent living. This is where Robyn's behavior becomes the actual issue, rather than Dayton's diagnosis itself. Autism exists on a broad spectrum, and the supports required vary enormously from person to person. Many autistic individuals live fully independent lives, manage careers, maintain households, and navigate complex social environments without ongoing assistance. Others require varying degrees of support. Dayton's documented life history places him firmly in the category of someone who has demonstrated exceptional capability. He graduated from college, he earned 3 degrees, he was top of his class, he received academic awards upon graduation. These are not the achievements of someone who requires full-time supervision and cannot function without a parent managing his daily life. The argument that Robyn must keep Dayton close because he is incapable of independence is not supported by his academic record, his history of attending university, or the years he spent living in an RV on the property, which, whatever its problems, demonstrated that he was capable of. Maintaining a separate living arrangement. Robyn believes he is incapable, and she has used that belief as a mechanism to keep him close and controlled. The diagnosis is real, the incapability is not. And the gap between those two things is where Robyn's control operates most effectively, because it gives her a justification that sounds like love and concern, but functions as something else entirely. With all of that established, the question of why Dayton is not on Sister Wives this season has a clear and concrete answer. He was not kicked off in any dramatic or scandalous sense. There was no single incident, no explosive confrontation, no action so severe that TLC made an editorial decision to remove him from the production. The reality is far less dramatic and far more systemic. The only thing bad that could realistically explain his absence from the show would be being rebellious to the narrative that Kody and Robyn want to portray to the mainstream. That is the actual threshold. That is the line that, when crossed, results in disappearance from the screen. Kody and Robyn have spent years carefully managing the story that Sister Wives tells about their family. The show exists, at this point, primarily as a platform for their version of events, their justifications, their grievances, their self-presentation to a national audience. Anyone who participates in filming is, by definition, participating in that project. Anyone who refuses to cooperate with the narrative, who might say something unscripted, who might present a version of events that contradicts what Kody and Robyn want broadcast, that person is a liability. And liabilities do not get airtime. If you don't want to play the narrative that Kody and Robyn are actually portraying to the mainstream, you're not welcome on the show. Dayton does not get along with Kody. He has not gotten along with Kody for years. He reunited with his biological father without permission. He refused COVID rules. He lived in an RV rather than comply. He shut down McKelty's reconciliation attempts. He declined to sign whatever participation agreement the production required. At every step, Dayton has chosen his own position over the one Kody and Robyn wanted him to occupy. Each of those choices was an act of quiet, consistent resistance, and the accumulation of those choices has produced exactly the outcome that was always going to follow. He is not on the show because the show cannot control what he would say or how he would say it, and Kody and Robyn are not willing to take that risk. Robyn's control over her children is the central and defining issue in this entire story. It explains why the family moved to Flagstaff. It explains the ARV. It explains the address that still connects Dayton to their $2 million property. It explains why a college graduate with academic honors and 3 degrees is still, at 25, almost 26 years old, listed at his parents' address rather than his own. The control did not end when he graduated. It did not end when he moved into the RV. It has not ended now. What has ended is Dayton's willingness to let that control put him in front of a camera. Dayton Brown is not missing. He has not done something scandalous. He has not been dramatically removed from a television production in disgrace. He is a young autistic man with a professional diagnosis, a college education, 3 earned degrees, academic honors, and years of documented resistance to a household structure that has never fully respected his autonomy. He is protesting the only way available to him, by refusing to show up. And until the conditions that drove him to that refusal change, there is no reason to expect that his position will.